Ladies and gentlemen, Violent Games here. Today, I wanted to talk about consumer backlash. What are the forms of consumer backlash? What's ineffective forms of consumer backlash? What is the best consumer backlash? Okay, so we're gonna get into that. Sorry, I've been having too much fun with some grass. I just wanted to talk about consumer backlash because I feel like 2018 has been a great year for it. I feel like we've actually done a lot of good things with consumer backlash that haven't been as prevalent in previous years. So I'm just going to go over various forms of it first and foremost to kind of introduce everyone to the topic. So one form of consumer backlash that I think is really positive right now is people on YouTube creating content and people also responding to that content. I feel like that is a great way for us to voice our opinions to developers. It's a clear way to actually spread information, and it actually supports the well-being of a bunch of content creators when they are able to do this. It really does feel like honest journalism. I feel like YouTube in a lot of ways should embrace that instead of trying to push their own programs and stuff. They focus on the people who are making content for them. I feel like their site would be a bit better. You know, we're not trying to get into YouTube politics here. But I think it's really positive that we're able to spread messages this way and really engage with each other as a community and inform each other of like problems with products, overcharging, microtransactions. We can talk about all of these things because of YouTube, and I'm really grateful for that. I think it's really important. Now, an ineffective way to use a similar form of backlash is to kind of shit post at the developers. When you leave criticism, guys, with words like "you fucking mongoloids" and you kind of dehumanize the other, and I know it sounds like SJW rhetoric. Look, I'm on the fence when it comes to a lot of these things. I think everything in moderation is ultimately the most effective way to do it. So sometimes, yes, being harsh is the right way, but understand that people put a lot of work into games and show a little respect for them, and some of these developers don't want to even put out the products that they're forced to put out. Sometimes that's a publisher pushing a deadline who doesn't understand what makes a good video game and are very short-minded. You need to come at these people through a critical lens and with some empathy if you want to have an impact on their life and for them to take you seriously. Like, if I approached you and you were doing something incorrectly, I'm sure this has happened in your life, and I come and I like brutally criticize you for it. I don't tell you what you're doing right, I only focus on what you're doing wrong, and I dehumanize you. Once you do that, you ruin the message that you're trying to send to people, and if you want things to change, you're going to catch more flies with honey. I'm just going to, throw that out there. So going to developers and shit posting on Twitter or Instagram, like, to be honest, I don't fucking know social media that well. I don't know if that's obvious, but I think being cruel to people as a means of communication is just ineffective. So that's a very ineffective form of consumer backlash. Now, to not drag on the point any longer, what do I think has been the best form of consumer backlash in 2018? Why am I proud of you guys? Because I really am. I feel like years prior, we weren't able to deal with this issue. Look, I'm literally dragging it out. I said I wasn't going to, and I'm going to. The best form of consumer backlash is not buying the shit. It's that simple. The biggest fuck you guys can give to a game developer is to spend no time on their game, don't look at it, and just don't buy it, because that's what hurts the most. When a publisher puts out a piece of shit and you guys turn it down. You say no. You say, I've dealt with this crap long enough and it's time to take a stand. So there are multiple examples throughout 2018 where this has happened. With Battlefield 5, we had all forms of consumer backlash coming. We had developers literally mistreat their customers, insult their customer base. Then we had people, try to voice their opinions to those developers, both in terrible means and both in good taste. And then we had people just not buy it, which is actually uncommon. For some reason, people seem to put up with a lot of crappy video games, and when people do this, it sets a precedent for the industry, and it encourages these developers to keep pushing crunch time, to keep pushing games before they're ready to release. It encourages that behavior. And this year, the sales for games like Battlefield 5, Fallout 76, I know I'm forgetting some because, like, you know, a game that is kind of shitty at its core is a game I often ignore. I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but it did. So I'm proud of that. But people usually just put up with the shit. They just buy it anyways. And I've never understood this mentality. It's like people were just so on the hype train and they weren't well informed. It seems like consumers are wising up to the shitty bullshit practices of the industries. People are turning their nose up at loot boxes. People are turning their nose up at microtransactions and Tostito pizza roll fucking tie-ins. People aren't happy with that. And the more people engage in this dialogue, the more people stop buying these things, we can have better games. I do believe wholeheartedly that when companies try to shill out microtransactions, it impacts the very design philosophy of a game. Because at some point, you need to encourage a player to spend money. And when you do that, you sacrifice the core mechanics of your gameplay. It's innately almost impossible not to do so. It impacts your game's design. Games this year that have not featured microtransactions, for example. I feel like I'm getting into another topic, but that's kind of the point of Let's Talks if you weren't aware. Sorry. But just think about the games that came out in 2018, especially the exceptional ones. A common theme in those games is that they didn't feature these microtransactions. Why do you think the God of War progression is so satisfying when you get new gear for you and Atreus, and you actually felt satisfied just equipping the new gear and seeing the new look and how badass you looked? That's satisfying progression. Same thing with Marvel's Spider-Man. You upgraded your character at your own pace with rewards that adhered to your play style the most. And that was satisfying because you didn't feel like the game was twisting your arm to try to get extra cash out of you. But then think of games like Shadow of War, which I don't know if that came out this year or not, to be honest with you. But think of Shadow of War and think of Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Assassin's Creed Odyssey honestly missed out on a lot of people playing the game, even though the game is actually allegedly good. Like, it's actually a good game. But a lot of people are ignoring it because of the Tostitos pizza roll tie-ins. Because when people see that and they know what microtransactions do to a game's design innately, they get turned off because they know at some point the game's gonna ask them to grind. And for people who have busy lifestyles and are maybe going between all these other releases that are offering more on a consistent basis, grinding just isn't appealing to people, you know, who are strapped for time. I'm sorry, it's not. And it honestly wears out a game if you force us to do repetitive missions in order to get somewhere that is more compelling. It's not fun. Grinding is not really fun in games, to be honest. I'm kind of more hip to that as an adult. Maybe it's an age thing. Maybe when you have the time to spend, grinding is more appealing, but not for me. Not for me anymore. It's just meh. It's just meh. And to force your player to do it and then like, oh, but you can pay for extra progression, you're kind of saying that your gameplay sucks and please pay to bypass it. I shouldn't have to pay you to get through your fucking game. Your game should be fun enough, god damn it. And some people will make that argument. Again, grinding is subject to taste. Look, let's not get into it. It's fine. You can have your opinion. I'm not going to kill you for it. It's like, I don't need to agree with you, but I will die for your opinion. Just know that, my audience. If you want to know where I morally stand, you could disagree with me on anything, no matter how absurd. But I want you to have your own opinion. I feel like that's the most important thing that we can do as a person, is to try to show people the beauty of the world through our lens. Everyone views everything different. It matters. Sorry, I'm getting into another topic entirely. But we'll end on this. Consumers, vote with your wallets. Understand that what you pay for in this industry matters, and it's going to influence games in the future. Because consumers are actually backlashing against microtransactions, loot boxes, just shitty game design in general, it's sending the right messages. Like, look at what Xbox is doing right now. Xbox, all they've heard all year is how no one's buying their consoles because they don't have exclusive content. And now they're buying Obsidian, they're buying Ninja Theory, and I'm fucking mad because I love both of those studios. And as a saddled up Sony pony with the saddle jeans and cowboy hat, like, I'm fucking pissed. But it's good for them. It's good that they got this backlash from the consumers. Like, be happy that we're actually making an impact. Like, EA stocks plummeting, good. Stop being mean to people. Start encouraging your developers. Because think about it, EA, they have great talent. They have BioWare. I think they had Visceral Games for a while, then it ran them into the ground with microtransaction bullshit. But they need to wise up and use their developers properly, because they have some really good creative minds in their studios, and they're abusing them. That's what's happening. They're abusing them. They're whipping them for every, cent they can earn. They're trying to exploit their customer base. They have no respect for you, and that's gonna stop. And we can get back to games like Mass Effect, the classic ones, where they were actually really well done and there was creative inspiration behind everything instead of deadlines and DLC and bullshit. Guys, vote with your wallets. That's what I'm going to end on. This is Violent Games signing out.